Today, let's take a look at some real demonic possessions caught on camera. Some of the footage is from Ed and Lorraine Warren themselves. Just a warning, some of this content is very graphic. Viewer discretion is advised. Starting off this countdown, we have the Warren files. The footage I'm about to show you is of a real possessed woman undergoing an exorcism. It is footage directly from the Warrens' files. The exorcism footage is 1 hour and 20 minutes long. In fact, the footage has been cut down, so that means that they were performing an exorcism for over an hour. I will say that the footage was blurred by Tony Spira before he uploaded it onto YouTube because it was just that graphic. Although it's blurred, we can still see how crazy the woman is acting and can hear the weird noises that she's making. You can see that the woman is fighting back against whatever is possessing her. And she's crying out in pain, trying to fight back against this demon that's controlling her body.
Find the picture of Michael.
Are you all right, honey? What's wrong, honey? What's wrong?
Don, I over where Ralph is.
What's wrong, honey?
She says he's over there.
The devil? Did he?
So in this footage, you can see Tony holding the poor woman as the devil is controlling her. She can't speak, but she's trying to do so. But all that's coming out are gasps for air. At one point, she even points beyond the camera, and Tony knew that she was pointing at the demon that was in the room with them. It gets creepier when everyone in the room starts chanting along, trying to get this demon out of her, while Tony holds her head up and still.
Blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
It's scary, but it's also really sad. This poor woman was in so much pain and suffering. Coming in at number 9, we have Michael Taylor. Sadly, this exorcism did not go well for Michael or his family. It was 1974, and Michael was a 31-year-old father of 5 children and husband to Christine Taylor. Everything was going fine until one day he just snapped. He had a huge public outburst and started screaming at everyone and was very belligerent to his wife. According to a witness, she said, and I quote, "I suddenly glanced at Mike and his whole features changed. He looked almost bestial. He kept looking at me and there was a really wild look in his eyes. I knew only the name of Jesus would save me, and I started saying over and over again, Jesus. When Christine heard me calling on the name of Jesus, she started saying it too. And I believe firmly that I was only by calling on his name that I was not killed." Michael ended up undergoing a number of exorcisms. One night, a bunch of priests spent hours casting out 40 demons from him. They knew there were 3 more demons inside of him: murder, madness, and violence. So they were all exhausted, so they planned to go home and resume the next day. Wrong move. That night, he attacked and killed his wife. And then he ripped out the eyes and tongue of their poodle before strangling it to death. Police found him shortly, wandering the streets, covered in blood. In at number 8, we have the Vatican Exorcism. In 2014, a man named Daniel Trachta was outside of a church in the Czech town of Ranov when he heard a woman screaming. He then held his phone up to the keyhole of the church to see what was going on inside. To his horror, he saw a possessed woman being exorcised. When the video went viral, representatives from the Catholic Church confirmed that the footage obtained through the church keyhole was a real exorcism. The woman's identity remains protected for her safety, but the church said that they were asking God to protect and to liberate this person. They used a Latin prayer asking for help, and apparently it worked. And at number 7, we have the possession of Julia. Now, this is a fairly recent case of possession. In 2008, a woman named Julia became possessed. Apparently, she was the queen of a satanic cult. and one night she got attacked by a demon. Immediately, she knew she needed help and went to a local priest. But he was like, hell no, I am not dealing with this. And so she reached out to a psychiatrist named Richard Gallagher. Gallagher then analyzed her behavior and knew she wasn't mentally ill, but was indeed possessed. During their meeting, items would fly off the shelves in his office, and Julia would speak in tongue and share intimate details about Richard that she possibly couldn't have known. He knew that she needed to get exorcised immediately. When she did undergo her exorcism, she got very violent, had super strength, levitated, and changed the temperature in the room. In at number 6, we have the case of Roland Doe. Now, the case of Roland Doe is actually a real case that inspired the movie The Exorcist. Fun fact. It all began in the late 1940s in Washington, D.C. with a 13-year-old named Roland Doe. We actually don't know his last name, so they gave him the name Doe. So Roland actually lost his Aunt Harriet, whom he loved and shared a special connection with. Shortly after her death in 1949, Roland started to experience strange things. He would hear scratching coming from the floors and walls of his room, and things around him would just move on their own. Roland's family began to worry about him, and so they went to a local Catholic priest for help. They then performed an exorcism on Roland. Upon doing so, Roland would convulse badly. He even managed to rip out a spring from the mattress that he was strapped down onto. He took out the spring and actually slashed one of the priests with it. A few days later, scratches began to appear all over Roland's body. In fact, at one point, an X appeared scratched into his chest. Another thing they saw was a pitchfork-shaped pattern of red lines move across his body. The marking went from his thigh down to his ankle. Upon all the crazy stuff that was happening to Roland, the priest noticed a strange pattern in his behavior. During the day, he was calm and normal, but during night, he would scream and get wild and act belligerent. Every night, Roland would undergo an exorcism. It was believed that he was possessed by 10 different demons. Finally, on April 18th, in 1949, the priests managed to expel Satan from his body. They shouted at Satan, saying that Saint Michael would battle him for Roland's soul. For 7 minutes, Roland twitched, and all of a sudden he stopped, and he said, he's gone. After that, everything seemingly went back to normal. Coming in at number 5, we have the Exorcism of Rosa. In 2015, a man named Father Amorth took on the possession case of a woman named Rosa. Rosa was in her late 30s, and things beyond her control would start to happen. She was acting different and would constantly have outbursts. Things got so bad that her family decided to take her to see Father. He ended up performing 9 or more exorcisms on her. During the exorcisms, Rosa's body would throb, she would thrash violently, foam at her mouth, and attack the bystanders. She then would speak to the Father in Latin, when she didn't even know the language. In the end, the exorcism was successful, and Father Amorth determined that the cause of possession was due to a curse that her brother's girlfriend put on her. They were both members of a demonic cult. Coming at number 4, we have the park exorcism. Imagine taking a nice little stroll in a park when you come across an exorcism. What would you do? Well, this actually happened to a woman in Texas. This woman stumbled across an exorcism at a public park. 2 people can be seen crouching over a third person as they tried to remove Satan from her.
They started getting louder and louder and louder. She think she was on the ground, and they were standing over her with hands on her, screaming, Satan, I demand that you depart. You've been, and it just went on and on and on.
That's a reaction from one bystander after what eyewitnesses are calling an exorcism this morning.
I don't know about you, but if I saw that in public, I would not start filming. I would just run the other way, okay? That thing is not getting latched onto me, and I'm not being involved in any way. Nah. Coming in at number 3, we have the subway possession. Okay, warning, this next video is fairly graphic. So, a man was taking the subway in San Francisco when he came across a possessed woman. The woman was covered in blood and was seen stabbing herself with a pencil.
Oh my God. Dude. Dude, come on. Yeah, dude, oh my. Dude, fail. Oh my god.
The video cuts off when this possessed woman chases the cameraman and his friend. And then there's no indication of what happened next. And at number 2, we have Kristy Bamu. On Christmas Day of 2010, a 15-year-old boy, Kristy Bamu, was found injured and drowned in a bathtub in London after an exorcism gone wrong. According to his sister and partner, Eric Bikubi, they said an evil spirit had taken over Kristy and he was unable to feel pain. So the two tortured him until he just begged to die. In the end, the two were convicted for the boy's murder and are still serving life in prison. Here's the messed up thing. Eric was actually the possessed one and was controlling his girlfriend to, commit these crimes against her own brother. He admitted to having delusions ever since he was young. Like he would see rats in his house and he would get really evil thoughts. He managed to convince everyone that Kristy was possessed, even pushed the boy out the window claiming that he could fly. In fact, he kept moving from apartment to apartment because spirits were following him, but he couldn't escape them. So he began consulting a Nigerian pastor for help. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the possessed nun. In 2005, Romanian nun Maricica Irina started to hear the devil talking to her. Obviously, she's a nun, so she began to freak out, and all the sisters freaked out, and so they performed an exorcism on her. The exorcism was performed by a priest who tried to take the devils out of the nun. He said she had to be restrained because she was violent and that she refused to drink holy water. When that didn't work, she was bound to a cross, gagged with a towel, and left in a dark convent room for 3 days without food and water. In the end, she died of suffocation and dehydration. Alright folks, that's all for today's video. If you haven't checked out part 1, then please do so. I will link it somewhere up here. You know the drill. And if you want to see part 3, then let me know in the comments below. And while you're down there, smash that like button. Obviously, subscribe to my channel. I've been your host, Lindsay Ivan. Stick around for some bloopers if there is any, and I'll see you when I see you. Bye.